Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see everyone here. I'm just going to give a few more minutes. I see people continuing to pop in. I am Christine Keisinger, and on behalf of the entire team at Studio B, I want to welcome you to our 8-week series called Resilience and Steadiness During Anxious Times. And we've worked really hard over the course of the last 2 weeks to bring this program to you. And I think you're going to find it really supportive and really necessary during this time. If you're anything like me, you're feeling a great deal of uncertainty, unpredictability, anxiety, perhaps a lack of steadiness. Which has resulted in a lot of fatigue. So what I would like to do to launch us into our work together is to offer you an opportunity to rest through a guided meditation that's going to allow you to find rest in various anchors in the body. And then once we get to that sweet spot, I want to share a beautiful poem that I stumbled across early this morning. And the title of the poem is For the One Who is Exhausted, a Blessing. Doesn't that sound good? Okay. So you may want to take a look at your screen and make sure that you're muted. That icon is in the lower left-hand corner, and just click that if not, so that eliminates all of the background noise. And we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to invite you to come into a seated position and just allow the feet to just land against the floor very light. Let that touch be very light. Spine is nice and tall, but don't be afraid to allow it to be supported by whatever is behind you. Shoulders down and back. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If not, you can keep your eyes nice and soft, gazing forward and slightly down. And just for the next few moments, take your awareness to your breath, just as it is. This beautiful, precious breath that has been sustaining you throughout the course of the last few weeks and all of your life. And now guiding your awareness down to your feet. And just feeling into the bottoms of your feet. Allowing them to feel light and open against the floor. And now traveling to the hands. Feeling into the palms of your hands. And allowing the palms to relax. Allow the area around the corners of your mouth to relax. The 4 corners of your eyes relax. Allow the shoulders to relax. And feel a letting go, a surrender of the weight of your body right into your seat. Allow your awareness now to just land on the sound of the words and the images they evoke. For the one who is exhausted, a blessing, by John O'Donohue. You have traveled too fast over false ground, and now your soul has come to take you back. Take refuge in your senses. Open up to all the small miracles that you have rushed through. Become inclined to watch the way of the rain when it falls slow and free. Imitate the habit of twilight, taking time to open the well of color that fostered the brightness of this day. Draw alongside the silence of stone until its calmness can claim you. Be excessively gentle with yourself. Excessively gentle. Stay clear of those who are vexed in spirit, and learn to linger around someone of ease, someone who feels that they have all the time in the world. And gradually, you will return to yourself, having learned a new respect for your heart and the joy that dwells far within the slowness of time. Although things are moving so quickly, you may have also noticed that time is slowing down. Savor and embrace the slowing down and all that that has to teach you. For this indeed is the blessing. Gently guide your awareness back to the sensation of your own breath, just as it is. Allow the chin to drop just slightly. And whenever you're ready, but only when you're ready, open your eyes. I want to get my slides going here. Can you see that? The slide come up? Good. So the first 4 weeks of our journey together is really looking at the notion of resilience and getting clear about what it is and how it works and how we can spend time every day building what I call our resiliency musculature. Before I do that, I wanted to share with you a quote that I've been teaching about a lot over the course of the last 2 weeks. Some of you may have heard it heard it before, heard me make reference to it, this quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, who once wrote that when the crowded Vietnamese refugee boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained calm and centered, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone to survive. So if even only one person on the boat remained calm and centered, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone to survive. Stress and anxiety and panic is contagious, and so is calm. And you know this from your own experience. You know that in matters of emergencies and in really urgent states, that you were likely very drawn to the one person who seemed to be the most calm on the boat. And in the situation that we're currently in, I want to be one of the calm ones on the boat. And when we think about the qualities and characteristics that the calm one possesses, most surely they possess a very strong sense of resilience paired with a sense of steadiness. I believe that resilience, and you're going to learn this to be true as we go through today's presentation, I believe that resilience can be strengthened, even though we are born hardwired for it, it can be strengthened. And once we have a level of resilience that we can feel really grounded and strong in, and we come to trust that no matter what happens, regardless of the storms that I'm navigating in my life, regardless of the pirates that come onto my boat, I can trust that I have the inner resources to handle whatever it is. That's a really important aspect of resiliency, is can you trust in your own resources to manage, to meet whatever is there in front of you? That trust part has come to mean the world to me. And as someone who, I believe I was born, I came out of the womb anxious, as someone who has spent a lifetime battling, struggling with anxiety, learning how to trust in my own resources has been invaluable and has led to, for the most part, a sense of steadiness. I might not like what's happening. I might not like the way in which the storms are rocking my boat. I may not like the pirates who have come upon the boat. I may not like it, but I know that I have the resources necessary to handle whatever is in front of me. So one of the first steps in cultivating resiliency is having a clear understanding about why it is that we are anxious in the first place. And that's where I want to start today. Many of us can probably name the various things that we feel anxious about, but when we can get really clear about what those things are, the mere ability to know what's there and to be able to name it can help to diminish a great deal, not all the way, but can help diminish a great deal the degree of anxiety that we're feeling. So I want to kind of go through what right now in our lives feels threatened. Certainly, our physical health feels threatened. We might feel fine now, but we know that there is this unknown, invisible virus out there that may indeed threaten my own physical health or the physical well-being of those people in my life that I love. We might feel that our family relationship structure has been threatened because it's really different right now. For some of us, we don't have access anymore to spending time with certain family members, and that can feel very unnerving. For many of us, we might find that there's plenty of family time because we're now living 24/7 with our family members, and that can feel destabilizing. Many of us feel that our own financial well-being is threatened. We might have worries and concerns about our professional stability moving forward. And certainly, there's a lot of anxiety around our national and global security, and that too can feel like a threat. So COVID-19 is inherently stressful. There's not a person on the planet right now that is not feeling fearful about this virus. So that's truth. There is fear present, and that is also normal. So I want to validate and affirm that it's completely reasonable to feel fearful. But when panic and anxiety set in, that's when you know that your own fear has not been tended to. So I just wanted to plant that seed to start thinking, for you to start thinking that when my panic and anxiety levels are really mounting, when the mind starts feeling as if it's spinning out of control or is like that speeding train, when panic and anxiety are present, you can step back and ask, okay, in what way right now am I somehow resisting the nature of this situation as inherently fearful, or I'm allowing it to sort of overcome me like the tsunami, or in what ways have I actually numbed myself to it? In what way might I feel frozen or in a state of emotional paralysis around it? So the fear is real, it's valid. It helps me a lot each time that I'm enormously compassionate with myself when I'm face to face with the fear. But when anxiety and panic become present, it's sort of like the fear has not been tended to. So just hold that thought as you're moving through the next several weeks, the next several months. COVID-19, inherently stressful. The stress is fueled by this idea that our lives changed very, very quickly. There wasn't a lot of preparation for the way that we're presently living. There's been this sense that I need to act fast. If you're ever wondering why it is that people have purchased excessive amounts of toilet paper very quickly, it's part of this idea that I need to act fast. And part of acting fast for you may have been, at the beginning of this journey, a lot of very rash purchasing because you knew and sensed that the days ahead were going to be very unpredictable and very uncertain. These days are inherently stressful because it feels like our daily lives have experienced an upheaval. Some of us might be feeling as if we are ruminating about the past. Why wasn't I more prepared for something like this? My mother always told me to have plenty of canned goods and Gatorade for days like this, and I laughed at her and I never listened. What steps could I have taken back then so that I wouldn't feel the fear and the anxiety that I'm feeling now? So we might feel like the mind is ruminating and regrets and why didn't I and what could I have done differently? And the mind might be fast forwarding into a very unknown future. What's it all going to look like on the other side of this? And that's where the worry comes from. So the rumination of the past and the worry about the future keeps us from being very present. The story that I like to tell about the consequences of not being present is one that comes from my own life, and I've shared this story before, and it's related to the excessive toilet paper purchasing. About 2 weeks ago, I was reading an article that was talking about the psychology of our excessive toilet paper purchasing over the course of the last few weeks. And later that day, the doorbell rang. And when I went outside, I saw that there was a huge case of toilet paper on my front doorstep. And I had a moment wondering why that was there. And I remembered reading the article earlier in the morning. And then I finally remembered that I had made that purchase. But I made that purchase very late at night, about a week and a half prior. I made that purchase from a frame of mind, from a mindset that was in complete stress response, very worried about the unpredictability of my future and the possibility of not having enough toilet paper. But I made that purchase and I forgot about it. Because in the brain, in that survivalistic instinct, I was completely cut off from the front part of my brain, which I refer to as the inner CEO of my life, the chief executive officer of my life. Had I had connection to her, would have said, do you need to buy this much toilet paper at this time? Is this really a reasonable thing to do? So think about how much time you might be spending, or you may have spent over the course of the last 3 weeks, back here in regret, rumination, or even a longing for the before COVID-19, or out here in a very unknown and very uncertain future, because we never want to make any kind of decision in our present day lives from the place of the past or from worry and anxiety of the future. This is probably one of the most important slides of today's presentation. Loss. Lots and lots of different losses contributing to the stress and the overwhelm that so many of us are feeling. And I think it's important to have an understanding of the nature of these losses. If you've been feeling anxious and overwhelmed and at the same time just not quite right? This might be because there is a part of you that's grieving. So there are very definite losses that many of us are feeling right now. The loss of our schedule, the loss of our routine, the loss of our space, the loss of seeing people that we love on a regular basis. I can go on and on. The loss of income. There are many, many defined losses. And then there's also what are known as limbo losses. And this is a real term that describes a real experience. For example, a limbo loss is, I have some of the symptoms of this virus, and I go and have a test, but I learn that my results are not immediate. And so I go home and I live in what is called limbo loss. A limbo loss is one in which I don't quite know whether or not I'm going to lose or not. I don't quite know if I'm going to lose my health. I don't quite know if I'm going to lose my life, if I'm going to lose my job, whatever it is. This is like anytime you go for test results and you have to wait. That waiting period is called the limbo loss. I'm not quite sure if I've lost, so I can't yet quite start grieving. It's a very anxious time. Limbo losses are very, very anxious times. Anticipatory loss is when I know, yeah, these 5 things in my life are going to be very, very different on the other side of this virus. They're not different yet, but they're going to be, so I'm anticipating it. For me, one of the most profound sources of loss is what is known as the morning of the dream. And the morning of the dream is, I'm not going to get to see my son graduate high school because graduation is canceled. Or I'm not going to get to see my daughter go to her senior prom. Or I'm not going to get to attend my best friend's wedding. All of the things that we have held visions of, dreams of, that are somehow in our future, we've put a lot of time, sort of thinking about, dreaming about as certainties that are now not going to happen in quite the way we always dreamed. So for example, This is why we must take seriously. There's a lot of posts in social media where a parent might post the photo of a child who's not going to graduate, maybe from, 8th grade graduating into high school, or, my niece, her father-daughter dance is canceled, and it's something that she really looks forward to every year. And we need to attend to those losses too, because they're losses, they're dreams that are not going to come into expression in quite the way we dreamed them. So I share these things not because I want us to go into a state of depression and despair, but rather as a way of helping us to get an understanding of why the stress and overwhelm is present, why we might be feeling off, because we might be experiencing one, two, or all of those losses. Again, sometimes knowing why it is I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling can help to diminish the overwhelm of those experiences. So, the good news, cultivating resilience. I love to use this image when I talk about resilience. I know that you have all witnessed at some point in your life the flower or the single blade of green grass that is coming up through stone or concrete, and you have said to yourself, how is that possible? What did it take for that living thing? What did it take for that living thing to rise up and to make itself known, to come into full expression under such circumstances? So one of the most important things to think about before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty of what resilience is to ask yourself, during times in my life, and you may be feeling like you're in that time right now, but during times in my life where life brought me to my knees, just brought me to my knees, just kind of gutted me. What did it take for me to get up? What was it inside of me that allowed me to emerge and to move forward? Because if you're listening right now, you're here, something got you up. And what got you up and what got you to move forward is something that's very unique to you. And so it's important for you to sort of dig in and to dive deep and to ask yourself, what were those qualities? What were those qualities that pushed me forward? And to get clear about those. Your own grit, your own stamina, your own fortitude. And one of the reasons that it's important to get clear about what those qualities are for you, because I believe that the way in which you're resilient is as unique to you as your own thumbprint. It's different for all of us. And it's different for all of us, not only because of the way we came in to the world and all the experiences that we've had up to this point. It's different for all of us also based on those people around us who were really good models for what it means to be resilient. A lot of times when people talk about resilience or think about resilience, they think about it as what it took for me to bounce back, or what it took for me to get up off the floor when I was brought to my knees. But we want to sort of broaden our notion of resiliency to include so much more. And this is how and why practicing resiliency every day is so important, because it is something that you can not only cultivate, but you can continue to strengthen. So I love this definition of resiliency. Resilience is a set of capacities that allow us to both meet and respond to pressures, to challenges, to stressors, to tragedies, even traumas, consciously, swiftly, adaptively, and effectively. I promise you that the calm person on the boat that was resilient and steady has a set of capacities that allows them to meet the stormy waters, to respond to what's happening around them consciously. I'm wide awake. I'm very, very intentional about the actions I'm taking. I'm not ordering toilet paper out of my primitive brain. I've got that prefrontal cortex fully engaged. My CEO is in the office helping to make me to make decisions. That I can meet and respond to pressures swiftly in ways that are adaptive and very effectively. Wow, this is a profound and really important definition, because as you might see in it, resilience is not about reactivity. It is not about acting from an unconscious, overwhelmed frame of mind. It is about being awake, being able to be adaptive when all of the resources I normally have available to me are gone, being effective, and being able to trust in myself that I can be all of these things. The very good news about resilience is that it is innate, it is hardwired in us. We are born resilient. When we say that children are resilient, it's because they are, especially very young children. I've always known this intellectually. I really knew it when my brother and sister-in-law gave birth to their son back last April, actually. And he very immediately had to have open heart surgery. And in the period of time following his surgery, we were frightened, horrified by how he looked, very, very concerned about his well-being and even whether or not he would live through this. But 12 hours later, 24 hours later, 48 hours later, we were astounded by his body's capacity to heal so quickly, to watch the scar that was cut down through the front of his chest mend itself very, very quickly, was living testimony of the resiliency of the human body. The degree to which we are resilient as we grow up is really a matter of whether or not our resiliency was nurtured or not, mostly by those around us. And so I would like for you to ask yourself, when you're thinking about resiliency, is who were your resiliency teachers? Who are your resiliency teachers now? You know, if you could bring one or two people to mind that you turned to because you knew that's the calm person on the boat. That's the person I'm going to rely upon to help me to navigate this difficult situation. Who are those people? And the more important question is, how do you model and inspire resiliency in others? If you have children, if you're around children, preteens or teens, this is really important right now because they are watching you. We ourselves have never been in this situation, total uncharted waters. They have never been in this situation, but you can be certain that they are relying on you to be the calm one on the boat. So they're watching you. how do you model resiliency for them? And how do you inspire it in them? One way that you can do that is to begin entertaining the notion that resiliency is musculature. Much like you would take yourself to the gym to build your bicep muscle or other muscles in your body, to tone it, to strengthen it, so that your body feels strong, your immunity is strong, you feel a strong sense of health and well-being. Your resiliency can be built in much the same way. Again, we're born resilient, but it's either strong or it's not as we continue to evolve based on whether or not it's been nurtured. For many of us, we were really blessed to have people around us who taught us or equipped us with good resiliency tools, but for many of us, that just was not the case. But it's not too late, because what we know about resiliency, just like emotional intelligence, is that our capacity for resiliency lives in the part of the brain that is very malleable. So even though you might be firmly entrenched in patterns and ways of being that make you feel you're on the weaker side when it comes to resilience, we can pave very, very new neural pathways of resiliency that can serve us very well. It doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter what stage of life we're in. It really doesn't even matter what kinds of experiences we've had. What matters is that we have an interest and we make a commitment to build our resiliency musculature. So one of my favorite models for how you build resiliency musculature is to learn what are called the 5 C's of resilient coping. They are calm, clarity, connection, competence, and courage. Now, if Zoom shut down and this entire program was shut down, and you understood that resilient coping is comprised of being calm, clear, connected, competent, and courageous, you would all have a pretty good sense of what that means and why these are the qualities of what it means to be resilient. But it's really helpful if we take a deep dive into what these things actually mean related to resiliency. And that's what I really want to focus on as we move through the second part of today's lesson. We're going to learn a lot about calm and pathways to calm over the next 8 weeks. And I don't think it would surprise anyone here to know that one of the key, if not the top qualities of what it means to be resilient is to be calm, to be the calm one on the boat. The way that I like to think about calm in terms of resiliency is to ponder the word equanimity. It might be one of my favorite words and really, really important now. So to have equanimity of mind, it's really a mind state. Equanimity refers to mental calmness, an evenness of temper, an evenness of thought, an evenness and a balance in one's emotionality, even in difficult situations. We have a very natural capacity for calm. In fact, some suggest that it is a mental state and a heart state that we most resonate with. This is one of the reasons that we are so drawn to individuals who, on a pretty consistent basis, feel very calm to us. It's one of the reasons why we very much resonate with certain activities that feel calming to us. Being in nature, being in or around water. For many of us, our affinity to music facilitates calm, and so we're drawn to it. So when you think about the things that you most love, chances are you love those things because they hold the vibration of calm that the heart of who you are is very, very drawn to. Probably one of the key features of calm, or key qualities of calm, is the ability to be responsive. And we're going to talk a lot about how do I get myself into a responsive frame of mind. We're going to talk about that in some sessions down the road. But I wanted to share with you a quote that I read in an article just on March 26th that came from an article that was written in the New York Times about the title of the article was "The Deeper Meaning of the Plague." And in this article, the author makes reference to one of my favorite writers, Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. And his book is so significant right now because in that book, Frankl talks about one of the most reliable life rafts for navigating rough waters of life, like what we're navigating right now, is being able to find deep meaning in it. So David Brooks writes, Viktor Frankl, writing from the madness of the Holocaust, reminded us that we don't get to choose our difficulties. We don't get to choose our difficulties. We did not choose this, but we get to choose our responses every time. And that the meaning of any situation, what you make of it, really comes from three things. Number one, what is the work you will offer in a time of crisis? In other words, what is the way that you are going to choose to serve others in a time of crisis? Number two, all the love that you give. And number three, your ability to display courage in the face of suffering. So the meaning we make of things, especially crisis, arises out of the decisions we make in terms of how we're going to serve, the love that we give, and our ability to be courageous in moments of great suffering. He writes, the menace that we face might be subhuman or superhuman, but we all have the option, all of us, we all have the option of asserting our own dignity. And part of asserting my own dignity in crisis is knowing that I get to choose how I'm going to respond as I navigate through. What I just read, I believe, is a beautiful, compelling representation of what calm means in reference to resilience. So calm, one of the key qualities of what it means to be resilient. Clarity. And this is a brief lesson in clarity that I want to teach you simply through two images. The first image is the image of the rough waters. Many of us have been here over the course of the last 3 weeks. My mind has looked like this. When my mind looks like this, it is very hard for me to discern. It is very hard for me to understand. It is very hard for me to know things. It is very hard for me to make good decisions. It's very hard for me to get my arms around what's happening. This image is important because it does illustrate how the brain tends to behave when we are facing overwhelm, tsunami of life, and many of us are feeling this way. So you can see that the purple here is representative of the part of the brain that, wow, when we really need to step into fighting through an emergency, fleeing an emergency, freezing during emergency, that fight, flee, freeze, our stress response comes from this part of the brain, the survivalist in us. I saw this recently at Wegmans in the toilet paper aisle. Very early one morning, as someone was unboxing a shipment of toilet paper that had come in, and people being very frantic and very angry, very unkind to each other because they wanted to get their toilet paper. It was this survival primal instinct. I will beat you. I will fight you if I have to get my toilet paper. We know that to behave from a place of reactivity, high reactivity, unless we're in a true emergency, is never going to yield the kind of outcome we wish for. And then we've got that CEO of the brain, our chief executive officer, prefrontal, that is really able to walk us off the ledge, that's able to process the stress response and really assess what is the clearest, best action I should take right now. Clarity occurs when I do feel triggered. I know that something really important is happening here, and I need to step up and respond. So all of the signs are there that I need to do something. I need to take action. And at the same time, that part of my brain that's really there to help me to make the best, most informed decision, that the passage between those two parts of the brain is open and clear, that they're not severed, they're not cut off. So the image that I love to use in contrast to the image of the stormy water is if you've ever been to the Caribbean, if you've ever been in a place where you could dip your feet into a very, very still lake or even a pond, and you look down and the water is so still that you can see your feet clearly. You can see the floor of the ocean clearly. You might be able to see shells, you might be able to see fish, but you can see clearly. Clarity is this mind. It's the mind that allows me to see, to know, to understand. Clarity is my ability for focus, attention, concentration, discernment. Cognitive flexibility, that means that when I am forced into making a decision that's a tough one, I can be cognitively flexible because I can see various options. Clarity means that my inner CEO is at home, the lights are on, and that CEO, that prefrontal cortex, is working for me. In a stressed state, we often lack clarity. So resiliency, when I feel strong or moderately strong in my resiliency musculature, I can count on, I can rely upon inner resources that keep me calm, inner resources that keep me clear. We're coming toward the end of our hour. We're going to launch in to our next session on Wednesday by delving into connection. And I want to stop here because the connective piece is really important. By the time we move through it, you might decide that connection might be at the top of the list, because we do not live on islands. Our resiliency is largely contingent upon the degree to which we need each other. And we need each other now. And so preserving and prioritizing our connection is really critical. So I would like to take you through a final practice. But before I do that, I'm wondering if anyone has any questions, any comments. And actually, what I'm curious about is if there's anything in particular here that really struck you that you'd like to share.
Hi, I'm Silvana. There was so much that resonated. I want to say hello to everybody. This was just beautiful. What I think resonated for me was most everything that you quoted, the books, the poetry, very touching. It just made me pause. But I think falling to my knees, I physically fell to my knees when I moved back here from being out of country for 13 years. And what pulled me up, I'm still pondering that question, but it brought to mind courage. It brought to mind a network of family and friends that gave me that strength. And then it brought to mind a lot of work that I've been doing with an emotional coach on the different parts of the brain, fight, flight, or freeze, and limbic systems and prefrontal cortex. And then you brought that up, and then you shared one of my most favorite words, equanimity. And I think that finding the calm in the storm, whether it is being quarantined, or you have a loss in your life, or you have just a major stumbling block that you need to get past. I think that calm and stillness is where it comes together. And if you can just let it happen and let it flow through you while you're being calm and steady, the clarity comes through. It's when you're not, that it's that wave, it's that storm in your mind, and you're just in fight or flight or freeze, and you're just not seeing clearly. And I just thought this 1 hour and your voice and what you pointed out and referenced, and it was beautiful. I loved it, and I shared it like with 4 different people on my chat. I'm just so impressed with it. So happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I really, what I really want to hone in on what you said was the moment, that time when you were really brought to your knees, and those things that got you up and moving forward, and how important it is to really ponder that. And I think what you'll discover as we move through the next 3 C's on Wednesday is that all of those things played a role in what got you up. And all of those things play a role in what gets all of us up. Those times when we are brought to our knees. And even more interesting is they're all interdependently related. They're all connected. So there's lots of different ways that we can use the 5 C's as a tool. They can teach us a lot about ourselves. They can teach us a lot about which of the 5 C's, for example, are really strong in me right now? Which ones would I like to develop more musculature around? Where do I feel really weak? Where do I blow it? And again, just having those in your back pocket for times when you're feeling really overwhelmed and, really want to touch into, your own grit and fortitude, because it's different for all of us. It's different for all of us. It's expressed differently in all of us. But at the end of the day, it's all connected back to those 5 C's. Okay. Anyone else?
I just wanted to touch on something when you said that we been more prepared for this. And I really feel a little shell shocked in that regard, because I thought I was prepared for something like this. We're cloud-based business, so we have the ability to work remotely. We're doing that, but I still feel like everything was shut off so abruptly, and we were forced into these closures. And I understand rationally the goodness that comes from that and why we're doing it, but it still feels harsh to me. And I feel like my lifeblood, my work, my seeing people every day, everything was just cut off abruptly. And I'm angry about it. And I understand that that's, I find myself going through those steps like, why am I acting this way? Why am I cynical? I'm talking back to the television. It's because I'm angry that what I used to have and love to do every day is gone. And it was gone in, we went from homeschooling one day to everything was shut down the next day. It was literally in a couple of days. And I felt like, and I understand that we're still trying to work, we're still doing it. And I think every day we get up and we do, we put the brave face on, we go through all the steps all day. By 6 o'clock at night, I'm just like, because I'm angry and I'm upset, and I go through the whole gamut of things just about every day. And then I get up the next morning and I try to do it again. So I think I'm still in that process of trying to figure out how to turn that anger into action or do something with it. That it was done to me, but I can't change it. I have to fix what I can from this point and use that to do something else. And so that's kind of when you said, are you prepared? Are you feeling that you weren't prepared? I thought I was prepared for something like this. Not this specifically, because I don't think we ever thought that, but we made preparations so that we could work remotely, or if we couldn't be in the office, if I got sick or someone did, like those type of things, but not on this level, obviously. And so I'm still feeling like a door was slammed in my face.
You said something really powerful. You said you were cut off from your lifeblood, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you were talking, it was a severing, an abrupt severing of those things that sustained your life, right? So being enraged about that would be completely valid and understandable, and wow, that's loss, and when you were mentioning all of those things that you're going through, I'm assuming you were referring to like the stages of grief.
Yeah, and I've been noticing that in myself, like I'm doing these stages, I'm going through them, and it's kind of, it's not funny, but it made me to be very inquisitive about it, because I found myself, why am I angry? Why are these things happening? And I realized that's what it was. I was going through the stages of loss, trying to get through them and fix what I could and move through them and understand them. But it wasn't until I was, looking at it that made me realize what it was. And because I'm not that person, I'm generally upbeat. And I was sitting next to my husband and I was saying these comments and he was like looking at me and I'm like, I know this isn't me. This isn't my personality. I'm not this way, but yet these things were coming out of me, and that's what it was. I was angry, and I'm not normally that person, but it is the way it is right now. My Roomba's just turned on. Excuse me.
So always remember that those stages of grief, they're not sequential.
Yeah.
Right, they're all over the place. You go back and forth and that sort of thing. And this is one of the most probably important times maybe in your life to be exceptionally tender with yourself for the way that you're feeling, especially the anger part.
I'm trying to use action and change it into action and prepare myself, like, what else I can do to make myself feel better. So that's kind of how I'm trying to do it, because you don't have much else to do. I mean, I can't change the things I can't change. I cannot change them. So I have to change the way I'm reacting to it. So that's kind of how I'm trying to manage it.
Yeah, and being okay with just maybe entertaining the possibility of, can I be okay with not feeling okay? Jen, I know you want to weigh in.
Sorry, I'm like jumping out of my skin. I'm Jen Ceramboli, and I'm the founder of Studio B. I just wanted to welcome all of you here. And what is your name?
Kiana?
Kiana. Okay, I wasn't sure if I was going to pronounce it right. So I'll be teaching practices tomorrow focused on exactly what you're expressing. So our sessions on Tuesday and Thursday are more practical in nature, more functional. So we'll be doing a lot of practices. And the emphasis for tomorrow actually is to include all of it. So practices, mindfulness-based practices to work with all of these feelings that are coming up, all of these emotions that are surfacing, many of which are extremely uncomfortable, and we don't want them present. So there is this tendency to just push them away, right? And that's my tendency as well, because I consider myself an exceptional planner. And I'll plan my way just about out of anything that I'm feeling, especially when I don't want to feel things. And I will tell you that I really needed to lean into support from my own teachers just a couple of days ago, because I was expressing exactly the same things that you just expressed to all of us. So it doesn't, defining the usual, like defining ourselves as, I'm not this person, I don't recognize myself right now. Instead, if you could just, certainly try to join us tomorrow and we'll work with these practices. But if you could just instead consider that anger could sit in the back seat, right? So I'm driving this car right now. There's a lot of feelings jumping into the back seat, a lot of emotions really getting sharp and loud. And as long as they stay back there and I remain in the driver's seat, like, we can work with that, right? So whenever you see anger jump into the driver's seat, just imagine it as almost like a toddler, right? That's getting really loud or throwing a temper tantrum, and just put it in its seat, put it in the seatbelt in the back seat. And just like using these simple, they sound silly, but these simple visualizations of working with emotions are really, really helpful. So just include them for now. And we'll work on teaching everyone some of the practices that are helping us too.
Yeah, that's really important. What's helping?
Yeah.
We're working on these practices, and that we're feeling everything you're feeling, and that every time I teach this content, I think, I need to hear this. I need to hear this. So when we come back on Wednesday, we'll move through, we'll be spending quite a bit of time on the connection piece, just to see what stress and overwhelm does to connection, and things that we can do to make sure we're prioritizing our most important connections as part of our resiliency musculature. Because a lot of great injury and wounding can come to our close relationships when our stress is not acknowledged or managed or met well. Okay, so that'll be important. And then we'll look at competence and courage. And then we're going to do some work on how do we create for ourselves a sense of our own stress signature. Again, we all feel and express stress differently. It's very unique to who we are, but getting clear about what your own stress signature is helps you to develop an awareness. So then when it's starting to rise, you can kind of interject, you can kind of get in there, much like that Viktor Frankl quote that I just read, and say, wait a minute, I feel this arising, but from the place of my own dignity, I get to choose my response. Okay? All right. We can do one final practice, or we can bring it to an end. It's 3:05. What do you think?
I think for those of you that have other commitments, you could certainly drop off if you need to. And also remember that you could jump back into your course. In the tab to the left, you'll see courses. And if you enter into that tab, you'll see a course on resilience and steadiness. This is being recorded and it will be moved into that course for access later on. So you could always jump in later on, re-listen to anything Christine went over today. If you miss any of our live sessions at any point, don't be hard on yourself, number one. You could just jump in on your own time and go through it at your own pace. So of course, we'd love to have all of you here with us as much as possible. We also realize that that will be very hard to get here every day. So that's why the recordings will be there. They take about 12 to 24 hours. They shouldn't take that long, but that's what we're telling everyone. So you should have them in the morning. Yeah, let's let Christine close our class out today with a nice final meditation. Thank you so much.
This is just a 3-minute practice. And in this practice, this actually comes from the work of Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer, Mindfulness of Self-Compassion. This is actually a practice that focuses on the breath. We're going to use the word peace, okay? On the inhalation, right, we're going to, I'm actually going to be saying it, and then I want you to just think it. On the inhalation, it's going to be peace for me. And on the exhalation, it's going to be peace for you. So we're imagining we're breathing in peace for ourselves on the inhalation. And as we're exhaling out peace for someone else. I'm going to set the timer. So we're just coming into that very comfortable seat, whatever feels best for you. And on each inhalation, peace for me. And on each exhalation, peace for you. The inhalation is peace for me. And however that feels for you, looks for you. And on each exhalation from the fullness and the spaciousness of your own heart, peace for you. Just noticing any resistance that arises as you take peace in for you. Noticing anything that arises. Exhale peace for others. And if even just for the next minute, you allow this inhalation, this peace for me, to envelop you like a warm cloak. I just allow you or invite you to allow that. And to allow that moving forward. Whenever you're ready, open your eyes. That was a fast 3 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you on Wednesday. I hope to see you tomorrow. I can't wait to experience the practices that Jen will share with us. But until then, be well.
Thank you, Christine. That was fantastic.
Thank you.